The au pair affairs. The Banfield residence stood at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac in Herndon, Virginia. It was an affluent neighborhood in Fairfax County, the kind of place where neighbors knew each other by name and violent crime felt virtually non-existent to anyone looking in from the outside. Brendan and Christine Banfield were living a picture-perfect life. Brendan was a trained federal agent, working as a criminal investigator for the Internal Revenue Service. His 37-year-old wife, Christine, was a compassionate, pediatric intensive care nurse who also served as a specialized sexual assault nurse examiner, dedicating her career to helping victims through their darkest moments. Together, they were raising their 4-year-old daughter. To help balance their busy professional lives with parenthood, the couple had hired a 22 Brazilian au pair named Juliana Pérez Magl, who moved into their home to assist with childcare. Nothing on the surface suggested that this household was built on a foundation of deceit, but behind closed doors, a lethal secret was taking shape. The emergency call and the blood-soaked scene. On the morning of February 24, 2023, just after 8 o'clock, emergency dispatchers received a frantic call from inside the Banfield residence. The voice on the line reported a shooting. When police officers and paramedics arrived, expecting an active emergency, they stepped directly into a horrific crime scene. Upstairs in the primary bedroom, the violence was staggering. Christine Banfield was found lying on the floor, bleeding heavily from multiple knife wounds to her neck. She was still barely breathing when first responders reached her, but she died shortly after. A few feet away lay 39-year-old Joseph Ryan. He had been shot twice, once in the head and once in the chest. Paramedics pronounced him dead at the scene. The sheer volume of blood inside the room stunned even seasoned homicide detectives. Lead Detective Terry Leach later testified that the blood was so extensive that it had soaked entirely through the carpet, penetrated the foam padding beneath, and pooled onto the wooden sofa. Standing inside the home were Brendan Banfield and the au pair, Juliana. Unharmed in the basement below was the Banfield's 4-year-old daughter. Brendan immediately offered officers a hero's narrative. He claimed he had walked in to find a complete stranger, Joseph, his wife, with a knife. Brendan said he reacted as any husband and federal law enforcement agent would. He drew his government firearm and opened fire on the attacker to save Christine. Juliana added that she had also grabbed a gun and fired a shot at Ryan. At first glance, it appeared to be a tragic case of self-defense, a husband interrupting a home invasion and neutralizing an attacker. But homicide investigators know that a crime scene never lies. And as they began examining the evidence, Brendan's story began to fall apart. Decoding the crime scene and digital trail, detectives immediately noticed critical red flags at the scene. There was no sign of forced entry anywhere in the house. No broken locks, no pried windows, and no evidence that Joseph Ryan had randomly broken in. Who was Joseph Ryan, and why had a 39-year-old man driven to this specific house early on a Friday morning? When forensic analysts extracted data from Ryan's mobile phone, they uncovered a massive breakthrough. Ryan was not a random intruder. He had been lured there. The digital trail led investigators to a niche social networking platform used for BDSM and fetish communities. Ryan had been messaging a profile named Anastasia 9 that featured pictures of Christine Banfield in a swimsuit. The person controlling the profile had invited Ryan to the Banfield home, explicitly arranging for a consensual violent roleplay sexual encounter. Ryan believed he was engaging in a prearranged fantasy. However, Detective Thomas Goodell noticed something suspicious in the phrasing of the messages coming from Anastasia 9. Sentences contained awkward grammar, such as, "How has been your experience on this site?" Phrasing that strongly suggested the author was not a native English speaker. Armed with search warrants for cell phones, laptops, and router logs, investigators dug deeper. What they found shattered the image of the grieving husband, Brendan Banfield, and the family's 22-year-old au pair, Juliana Pérez Magalhães, were having an extramarital affair that had begun months before the killings. This revelation shifted the entire trajectory of the murder investigation. Detectives were no longer looking at a tragic home invasion. They were unraveling a cold-blooded murder plot. The breakthrough and the replacement. For months, detectives meticulously assembled physical and digital evidence. Bloodstain pattern experts analyzed the bedroom. They discovered that the blood spatter on the walls and furniture did not match Brendan's account of a frantic, sudden struggle between Ryan and Christine. More damning was forensic evidence on Brendan's clothing. Cast-off blood spatter on his jeans was consistent with someone actively swinging the knife that stabbed Christine, rather than someone standing back and firing a gun. Furthermore, blood found on Ryan's body contradicted the claim that he had been in a violent attack with Christine. Then came a shocking discovery in October when investigators returned to the Banfield residence with a new search warrant. The home had changed completely. Photographs of Christine had disappeared. In the primary bedroom where Christine had been murdered, photos of Brendan and Juliana were now on display. Juliana's clothes and personal belongings filled the room. As Detective Goodell later put it, Juliana had effectively replaced Christine. Shortly after, police moved in and arrested Juliana Peresma. Facing serious charges, Juliana accepted a plea deal, pleading guilty to manslaughter, in exchange for testifying as the state's star witness against Brendan. She revealed the master plan to prosecutors. Brendan wanted to end his marriage to build a future with Juliana, but he refused to go through a divorce because he believed it would damage him financially and affect custody of his daughter. Brendan directed the creation of the fake Fit-A-Life profile using Christine's photos. They used Christine's devices while she was home so the internet activity would appear authentic. They selected Joseph Rihanna, complete stranger, to act as an unsuspecting fall guy, deceiving him into arriving at the house under the belief that he was taking part in a consensual encounter. Brendan Banfield was subsequently charged and arrested for murder. The trial and verdict. In a packed Fairfax County courtroom, the trial of Brendan Banfield got underway. Prosecutors laid out an airtight, multi-layered case. Over several days, Juliana took the witness stand, emotionally detailing how her relationship with Brendan evolved, how he directed the creation of the online persona, and how Ryan was lured to the house. Digital forensic experts presented timestamps and login history showing how the communications were orchestrated. Blood spatter experts walked the jury through the physical evidence showing the crime scene had been manipulated. In a rare move, Brendan Banfield chose to testify in his own defense. He admitted to the affair with the au pair and admitted to shooting Ryan, but insisted he had acted solely to save his wife from an intruder. Under intense cross-examination, however, his narrative collapsed against the digital records and bloodstain analysis. After weeks of testimony and nearly 9 hours of jury deliberation, the verdict was read. Guilty. Brendan Banfield was convicted on 2 counts of aggravated murder, firearm charges, and felony child endangerment for carrying out the killings while his 4-year-old daughter was inside the home. Chief Judge Penny Askerit sentenced Banfield to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Addressing him directly, Judge Askerit said, "The level of cruelty, calculation, and inhumanity in this case reflects something far deeper than anger or impulse. It reflects evil." Joseph Ryan, who was initially painted as a violent intruder, was formally cleared of any wrongdoing. He was an innocent man, catfished and manipulated into walking into a fatal trap, a crime orchestrated from within a quiet suburban home. Stay safe, happy. Watch your surroundings. Follow for more.